Drama in London and in Washington. Yes, indeed. The UK has just pulled its ambassador to the US, Peter Mandelson, from office. Why? Well, basically, emails, because now we're releasing literally everything, revealed that he called Jeffrey Epstein his best pal and urged him to challenge his 2008 conviction. This is just another diplomatic scandal. It's a test of political loyalty and vetting system and leadership under fire. What does this mean for the UK? What does this mean for the US and the public's trust in institution? Stay tuned. Well, what does it mean? Well, take a look at what's going on. Essentially, this is more fallout of the Epstein-related story. And I did tell you that while no one is going to go to jail, right, for this thing, while no one is going to go to jail, heads are going to fall. This is going to be the same way this guy lost his job, to be very careful about the mega impact on this story that keeps developing over and over and over. Now, believe it or not, they actually want to hear about JP Morgan. They want to bring JP Morgan back out, which they paid $300 million without admitting any guilt, because they used to bank Jeffrey Epstein even after 2008. Okay? And they kept relationship with him even after he was convicted. They kept meeting with him, and so no one goes to jail, but everybody's paying for it. And now, of course, the biggest story, and that's the Black Swan you need to watch out for, is the fact that MAGA is starting to get split over this. Some of the Republicans want to release even more information and want to go to Congress to ask for that. Are they going to get it? We shall see. But right now, this concerns that you have Major Green, you have 3 or 4 Republicans that are bounded together against all the other. By the way, lots of Republicans don't want to do any more damage, don't want to talk about this any longer, because basically it's taking the air out of the room. This is, stop talking about this thing. Let's move on to other things. We got bigger fish to fry. And this is not a hoax. This is important. We want to talk and we want to bring it up. You got Massey, which is a Republican, and you got Taylor Greene, which is a real MAGA Republican. Very shocked that she actually went ahead and said, okay, fine, you know what? I want to hear about it. Okay? I want to hear about this. Now, why are they doing it? Are they doing it because, again, you have to understand how these people think, internationally and nationally. These people are playing chess here. Do they really want to do it because they want to hear about what happened? Or they realize themselves, some of the Republicans, that this ship is sailing with or without them. They don't know where it's going to land, but if it lands in the wrong area, you better be on that boat that didn't go there, if you know what I mean. Essentially, maybe they're protecting themselves because they know that the Democrats are not going to give up. They know that more information is going to come out. As you could see, even though one went to jail, the prime minister, the ambassador, now, what do we care about this guy? Well, you should care about this guy because he was involved in a negotiation with Trump and with in the UK to that negotiation. That was an important one, right? So they're losing a big asset there because he's got to go. So, but that's one thing. And you got JP Morgan, and then you've got the MAGA people themselves that want to know more, and a lot of the Republicans that basically pushed by Trump say no more disclosure. So you have a bit of a crack here. What is this crack going to look like? Is this going to be an issue going forward? It could become an issue. Now, the question I'm asking is, why are they doing it? Well, maybe they're doing it because they know that more things are going to come out, as we just saw with this. And I heard I heard him talk before, when so basically they released all those emails, and I heard him, he was basically saying, I can't believe I did this. I'm so sorry. I talked to the guy. I wasn't myself. I thought I was fooled by him, blah, blah, blah. But the next day he was gone nonetheless. Okay. And the victims are more and more boisterous. They're more vocal, right? They want to hear, they want to talk about this more and more and more. And obviously, the more you talk, the more you're going to hear, the more you're going to listen, the more you're going to understand, and the more you're going to realize, hey, this is bigger than we thought. They want to bring back JP Morgan. They want to bring back JP Morgan to Congress. Someone from them. Imagine the image of that, because that's what they don't want. Okay? So now why is Taylor Greene and Massey and these 4 Republicans want to do it? Well, I mean, they have a common ground, or maybe they realize that if it doesn't go well for the Republicans at some point, maybe you want to be on the side of it going well as opposed to not going well. Now, of course, I'm sure they're doing it because they want to know, but you want to know. That's nice, but you want to find out what there's more people, and what you're going to go after these people. You're going to. That usually doesn't happen. Nobody goes to, unless they need a trial. You need a trial right now. You don't do a trial in Congress. So really, at the end of the day, it's window dressing, but this is becoming more than window dressing. This is becoming theater. This is going to be a movie. This is going to be a blockbuster pretty soon, because as you could see, it has impact. And now obviously they're all gunning for the president on this one, right? The Democrats. And he's basically saying, no, I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to talk about it. And you could understand, because look, it's sucking the air of the room. And is it very constructive? Well, yeah, if you're a victim, you want to know what happened. You want to, but then again, it's the idea of saying, the idea was to clean up the swamp. Yeah, that's for public consumption, right? Deep down, there's something else going on. Maybe they want to clean up some of the people they didn't like, or maybe they want to hide certain things. Who knows? But the more you look, the more you poke, the more people are going to come up. And obviously, as people are falling, well, the people are getting excited to say, hey, let's see what happens next. Obviously, there's still people involved that got away with it. And this, believe it or not, impacts even the prime minister himself, because they say, well, so where were you? Didn't you realize this was going on? Why did you allow this to happen? And and obviously this guy is a good friend of the U.S. So it was basically, his name is Peter Mandelson. He's a prominent UK Labour figure and former EU commissioner. He was appointed to UK ambassador to the U.S. Not long ago. And then, of course, emails and letters came to light showing Mandelson had referred to the sex offender Jeffrey Epstein as my best pal. You didn't know that, and you still hired him? The UK ministry claimed during the appointment process that the known facts about Mendelssohn's ties with Epstein were different. I didn't realize I didn't know that. Otherwise, obviously, I wouldn't hire him. Fresh disclosures revealed more intimate or supportive relation than previously understood. So politically, this becomes a liability for the UK Prime Minister and Labour, being seen to appoint someone whose association with a controversial figure like Epstein could be deeply embarrassing and possibly damaging diplomatic relation with the U.S., where the president himself is kind of, fighting this thing as well. So you got 2 people within, close enough to Epstein. The guy was everywhere. So what do you expect? The revelation raised question about the vetting process for high-level diplomatic postings. There is blood in the water. How much more was known? What was disclosed? To what degree was Mandelson transparent about his past relationship with Epstein? There's also a published trust angle. In recent years, Epstein network has become a symbol of the misuse of influence and secrecy. For a senior political to be tied to him is especially sensitive. If he's there, there may be others. He was dismissed, fired from his post as UK ambassador. Boom, gone. The next day, his consultancy, because he's got a consultancy in New York, in Washington, called Global Counsel, is cutting ties with him. They don't want anything to do with him. So even though no one is guilty. There's been a trial, they have public opinion, and he's gone. So don't underestimate those 33,000 files where there was nothing in them. And don't underestimate the fact that she said that nothing happened. Heads are rolling. Domestically, the controversy likely puts pressure on the labor image, particularly regarding ethic judgments. Internationally, this may affect the U.S.-UK diplomatic relation in small ways, though more likely not a major rupture. There was also likely to scrutiny on how diplomats are appointed and what disclosures are made. That means that this thing with Epstein is going on. I mean, obviously. Ghislaine Maxwell, got a good deal, quote unquote. She went in, she talked, she didn't accuse everyone, and she basically was told to go into a club fed in a nice, much better facility. I don't think there's no talk about clemency anymore, because that would be impossible. That would sound very weird. But it's interesting how things are running out. It's very interesting. And it keeps on going and going and going. And this is not over. All during September, these people are going to be coming to Congress. They're going to be talking, and they're going to be going over all the topics. And, of course, you're not going to hear anything except for one very important one, who is the guy that actually let all these people get out. But apart from him, no one is going. You're not going to hear anything. What's his name? Is basically Acosta, right? And the reason Acosta is important is because the 2007 non-prosecution deal. So basically, this is quite interesting. It's quite interesting because of the type of deal that Epstein got at that time. And now, of course, this is coming back again. This is 2007, but it's coming back. Basically, Acosta approved, because he was a U.S. attorney at that time, and he approved a controversial plea deal with Epstein. Let me tell you what's controversial. Epstein said, okay, I'm guilty, right? And to 2 state prostitution charges, serving 13 months in a county jail, and was granted extensive work release privileges. It was said that basically he was free. I mean, in exchange, the prosecutors agreed not to pursue federal sex trafficking charges, despite evidence involving dozens of victims. Great deal. But more important, that's the one that hurts. The agreement also provided immunity to Epstein, quote-unquote, co-conspirators, who were never named, which critics argue shielded Ghislaine Maxwell and others from accountability. The only reason that thing got gone forward with Ghislaine Maxwell is because the problem is, because the deal was kept secret from Epstein victims, a direct violation of the Crime Victims' Right Act. The federal ruled in 2019 that Acosta's office had broken the law by withholding information from the victim. Therefore, they were able to pursue Ghislaine Maxwell. Co-conspirators? You know what? Let me out. And because I know there are other people involved, obviously, let these people off the hook as well. Okay, fine. Agreed. That's a good deal. That's a good deal. And obviously, I don't know if you remember, but Acosta, again, for really incredible reason, he became U.S. Secretary of Labor. So he was a U.S. attorney, and then he became the U.S. Secretary of Labor under President Trump from 2017, 2019. But he resigned after renewed scrutiny of this handling of the Epstein case. So you could see, right, it's smoke somewhere. It's got to be a fire somewhere, right? It's smoke. And now, today, that smoke is still coming back again. You could see, and this is what drives everyone crazy, right? They're saying, come on, I mean, what co-conspirators? What do you mean you're getting a job as what is your qualification, right? And you were this attorney. This sounds like payoff. Who knows? But the point is, these are very delicate matters, and people are going to be concerned and worried that this could become a thing. And it is becoming a thing. This guy lost his job. He lost his job because of it. Now, what happens next? Well, this is where the channel comes in, right? So, what happens next? Well, in terms of a black swan, this is important. This is important because, and it not so much that this guy lost his job. I mean, I don't think it's going to impact the relationship between the UK, and it weakens the prime minister, but it's mostly a UK situation, right? It doesn't really impact the US. I mean, they already did the deal. You happen to have a very nice deal, by the way. One of the better deals, anyway. You get 10%. Anyway, let's not read too much into that. The point, though, is that, and that story is going to come out more and more, is that Taylor Greene, which was I don't know if you remember who she is, but she's a very, very, very strong supporter of Trump and the MAGA movement. And she said, yes, I'm going to put my name on that list of Republicans along 200 plus Democrats that want more release of information. I want to know more. I want to release everything. First, because obviously I'm a woman and I want to know what, there were victims, and I want to know more, don't you? What's interesting is all the other Republicans don't. They say we release enough information, and the president is putting pressure on them to move on. I mean, remember at the beginning he said there was nothing there. Now he said it's a hoax. And regardless of what's really happened or really going on, the issue is there's pressure within the MAGA movement. You don't want to crack in there, because don't forget, we are going to have an election pretty soon. And there's going to be an election in 2026. And that is going to be a problem, because if they don't get the required votes, don't forget, in 2026, all of the House is being voted on, and a third of the Senate. I mean, if this thing goes sideways, I mean, the Democrats are very weak right now, but I mean, if it goes sideways, you could lose that support. If you lose the support, then everything that you're doing, remember the tariffs and all the issues that the U.S. needs to deal with. And there's a lot of things that needs to be dealt with, a tremendous amount of things. Right? The U.S. is losing ground right now internationally, is losing ground industrially. Supply chain, what's going on with the pharmaceutical. 100% of the antibiotics are coming from China. I mean, almost all of the rare earth minerals are not able to conclude a deal with China. Still talking to India right now. These are important factors. And regardless of who would have been the president, these things need to be dealt with. And the U.S. has a huge amount of trade deficit. Forget the fiscal deficit. The U.S. has a twin deficit. There's a lot of things that are happening, and this is what this channel is about. We're going through all of the issues that are happening, the economy, the stock market, the dollar. Don't forget to join the channel, right? Don't forget to join the channel, because you will be able to understand, and this is not a news channel. This is an analytical channel. I want you to be informed. And the reason you want to be informed, you want to know what is going on. And these people, when I'm saying these people, I'm talking about, in politics and geopolitical and the economy and all that. They are playing chess. They're not playing checkers. So you need to understand what else is going on. Okay? Because right now, obviously, with this situation with Epstein, everyone knows that no one is going to go to jail, technically. But this is a great way to get rid of some of your enemies as well, or people you don't like, or people that were not so nice, right? So there's this angle being played. Even the MAGA people will say, I want to know more. Well, maybe you're thinking, you say, listen, I know what's really going on. This thing is going to explode. And if it does, I want to make sure, hey, I wanted to know more. These people, they didn't want. Okay? And there's a lot of Republicans. The Republicans are taking a big gamble here by not wanting to know more about it. Now, the rationale is, but we've asked for information already. It's not like we don't want it to be released. Because now we're playing the game of the Democrats. Yeah, you are maybe, but it's a very delicate balance, because there's victims, and more women are coming out that were shut off basically. And if you could see the amount of views, the amount of podcasts that are being produced, right, the amount of interest, you realize that this thing is a real story. And this is all media, social media now, right? And everything gets, maybe not in the court system, but the court of public opinion. It's a major issue. So people have to, they're going to sit down and they're going to think, okay, what is the best way to handle this? And when you have someone like Taylor Greene, a major MAGA person, that goes in and says, out of only 4 Republicans that want to have more information released versus the 260 others, that's like a block. And they say, what are you doing? We are releasing information. Well, yeah, I mean, and I looked at it. There's lots of information being released. But when you look at the information, there's nothing there, really. I mean, there was the last 33,000 pages, there was nothing in them. It was all, and then there was 100 pages of flight logs, and that's it. And then a video or whatever of his house inside, and that's it. There was not enough. And as you could see, the more you dig, this guy comes out and he's gone. So there is something going on there. So that's one thing that we have to keep following, which is quite important, because obviously this thing is not going away anytime soon. Especially you're going to have all these people in Congress talking about it over the next, the next couple of times. Now, the second thing I want to talk about, and that is I would call it an interesting situation. We haven't looked at the war in the Middle East for a while. Not that there's a war over there, but there's been something happened there, and what happened is this. Basically, what Israel did, and I told you before that Netanyahu was very much involved, very much eager to to obviously what happened in Israel. I mean, that's a situation right there. But to keep the fight going. Don't forget, he's under investigation himself. And, I mean, you could argue, both ways whether or not this is needed. But, and Gaza is one thing. But now they actually tried to, basically kill some Hamas people. Okay, fine. But they went into Qatar. And this is a turning point. And there was an Israel airstrike in Doha, Qatar, targeting Hamas leaders during ceasefire negotiations. What are you doing? It has shattered regional diplomatic norms. The attack killed several, and sparked widespread condemnation and threatens to derail the peace effort and has been inching forward. Is this a deliberate provocation, miscalculation? No, the issue with this is that it was done without the U.S. It was done without the U.S. And in fact, if you go back to the video that I done during the Israeli-Iran situation, that also got started in a, the U.S. knew, but it felt that they were doing it, and they say, okay, I'm going in it, I'm doing it, all right, go ahead, but be careful, basically. And they did it. Then there was, of course, the taking over of Gaza. That was also interesting. President basically goes along, and this time around he was pissed. This time he says, no, this is too much. Qatar is a friend. It's a democratic. It's a sovereign government. You just can't attack Qatar. I mean, Qatar is basically, for those of you who don't realize, they're basically the Switzerland of the Middle East, where this is where everything gets done. Right? This is where all the peace negotiation happen. Peace doesn't happen in the middle of a war. Peace happens where there's no war. Right? So you need a separate area. You need a safe place, and a safe place where you basically can conduct business. That's what it is. That's all it is at the end of the day. But that got shattered. So what does that mean? Well, what do you care about Qatar? Well, you should care, because Basically, it would appear that Israel is a bit of a loose cannon. That's not good, because the U.S. is totally tied to Israel. Very powerful, obviously. Now, you have to understand from the Israeli point of view as well. So you could say, well, Netanyahu wants to keep fighting. Yeah, but you also have to understand. In fact, they made a movie about Munich. I don't know if you remember Munich in the '72 when basically the Palestinians went in there and killed Israeli athletes. You have to understand that in Israel, they never let it go. In fact, Spielberg made a movie about that, where they literally went and looked and killed all the people after the Munich thing was done. The family and Israel went out after all these people. So you should know, if you know your history, so you shouldn't be too surprised, except here, obviously, well, it's one thing to go and, but now you're attacking. You could have destroyed, you could have, in fact, they killed the Qatari in the process. That's problematic, because it shows that, one, the U.S. really doesn't have control about Israel. It diminishes Trump's ability to control the situation and his standing, and he's probably pissed about that. And of course, and the way they did it, it's not like that they flew a plane and they bombed and they left. No, they actually used ballistic missiles. And what it means is that the missiles literally shoots up, goes into space, travels over, and then drops on. So space doesn't belong to anyone. I'm talking about real space. And that's pure technology, very, very strong technology, because that thing is able to go up in space, turn around, goes through the space, which doesn't belong to anyone, right? Instead of going through the Qatari space. So they could never say, we went to the Qatar, we invaded your airspace. No, we went to space, literally, and we just went straight down and bam, we ran into the building. It was a very targeted, amazing attack. It was a very targeted attack. And it looks like they didn't kill them anyway. So it's difficult to have peace when everybody's fighting, obviously. And what happens after? Now, first it was Iran, Israel. Okay, fine. You could make. Okay, then it was into the Gaza thing. Okay, fine. Now you're going into other countries. And suppose they go to Paris. You're going to bomb Paris also? If they come to the U.S., you're going to bomb the U.S.? Because now, obviously, there's no peace talks, obviously. So, these people are probably going to have to leave Qatar and go somewhere else. And Qatar is not just some place in the Middle East where you got U.S. troops over there. This is like a forward, the U.S. needs interest, and that's why they're there. The same way the U.S. needs interest with India. Okay, India is a very also important. This is geopolitical. This is where the geopolitical aspect of this channel becomes important, because the U.S. needs really to be able to control, to understand, and see what's going on everywhere. Otherwise, it's a problem. It's a problem for the U.S. Okay, because you need to be there geopolitically. You need to understand what's happening. So September 9th, Israeli conducted an airstrike in Doha targeting Hamas political leadership. It was in a residential compound. Senior Hamas figures were reportedly meeting there, possibly to discuss the ceasefire. Strike is symbolic, as it's a tactical for Israel, targeting Hamas leadership even inside sovereign Gulf states. I don't care where you are, I'm going to get you. It undercuts Qatar's role as a mediator. So now, what are you going to do about it? You got to do something, or at least imposes serious risk on that role. It is, if the territory is vulnerable to strikes, there's no mediation talks. Maybe that's the idea. Maybe the idea is, I want to keep fighting. So no peace. I want to say, I want to have peace with Gaza, but I'm going to go after the people that are trying to get the peace. So there is no peace at the end of the day. We're going to keep fighting. Strong and widespread diplomatic condemnation. Lots of people have to come up and say, I don't agree or agree. Which side are you on? The UN Security Council condemned the strikes, obviously. They're not a big friend of Israel. And Hamas has said that the strike will not change the ceasefire demands, which include full withdrawal, robust prisoner for exchange, and humanitarian, also reconstruction. Qatar has accused Israel of undermining the peace efforts. I said, what are you doing? We were talking, what are you doing? Okay? Don't forget, they were going to try the political leaders. They're not the the fighting leaders, the republic, the leader they want to try, the political. They're just basically enjoying Qatar and trying to work for the Hamas movement and the Gaza peace process or whatever. But they're not generals basically. And if you go after them, then obviously there is no peace. There is nothing. You're going to keep fighting. There's concern that the trust required for negotiation is eroded. The attack may provoke, retaliatory rhetorical action. Maybe the Hamas are going to. They recently attacked Jerusalem, where 6 people got killed. Maybe they're going to do something else again, and then we go again and again and again. You could see where these things could go on for quite some time, and maybe you don't want peace. Maybe you want to keep fighting. Who knows? But obviously, it undermines the peace process, which is one thing, but it also undermines President Trump because he was not told. He didn't know. Thought you were in charge of everything. You're not. Another area where theoretically the U.S. presidency has some control was the situation with Russia. Now that was more problematic, I have to say, because essentially what has happened is Russia sent drones into NATO airspace and into Poland. No, they're saying, hold on, no. They weren't meant to go there. What happened is the Ukrainian electronics, surveillance apparatus confused the drones, and the drones went into Poland. Now, the reason it's important is this is why this is important. First of all, why did you do it? It's a mistake. We didn't mean to go in there. But since it's in there, let me see what you guys are doing. So what did they do? Well, NATO fighters scrambled millions of dollars in jets and missiles deployed against a swarm of cheap drones. Listen to this carefully. NATO fighters scrambled millions of dollars in jets and missiles against swarms of cheap drones. So basically, it's a failure. Why is this a failure? And it's, whoever's watching say, oh, that's interesting. So I'm sending you a couple of drones worth nothing, and you deploying planes and missiles, right, worth millions of dollars. Let me think about this for a second. Let me 10x the amount of drones. Can you 10x the amount of plane? You can't, right? You don't have enough. And that's why, France recently sent 4 planes and England 2 planes. But you don't have the ability to defend yourself against a missile. And this is a topic that I've said that once before, that the way NATO and the U.S., quite frankly, has been developing weapons is developing weapons the old-fashioned way. The plane, the submarine, right? How about the drones? Nobody's drone factory. What's the point? Well, they're doing a lot of damage. So you're not fighting the new war. You're fighting the old war. And you have to now learn to build those weapons and learn how to use them. So that's one thing that was found out, is that that's going to be easy to get if we ever want to get in there. And remember, incidents happen very easily because now, and what did the U.S. said? Anybody reacted? Anybody said this is wrong? Anybody did something? Anybody, I don't know, against Russia? Okay. So let's break down the incursion. Let's understand what happened, because there's diplomatic, military, and strategic implications here that are very important. And they're important because what we realize is that the next phase? No, you got to be kidding me. What is Russia wants? They want to get into Poland, and then when they want to take over the whole place? That doesn't make any sense, right? What's really going on? That's the question. What are they really doing? Of course, you have to understand that just before, what the Europeans were doing, what were they doing? What they were doing is they were saying, okay, well, we're going to take our soldiers and we're going to put them between Russia and Ukraine, because that's what's really happening. And we're waiting for the U.S. to basically say that they are going to provide security guarantees, and then we're all done, right? And Russia said, oh, be careful. If you put any with or without a peace treaty, we will shoot you down. And by the way, let me show you what I could do also. Somehow those drones went into. Now, how does this impact the U.S.? Well, I'll be careful now. If you have a full-blown war over there, because it could happen very quickly. And don't forget, at the moment that we're speaking, the Europeans are building up their defense and their weapons, right? They're spending more and more money, 5%. Remember the 5% that they want NATO to spend, because they need to catch up to what's going on in Ukraine. That's exactly what's happening. So they are building up and building up and building up. And if you build up enough and then you start picking fights and everybody is armed to the teeth, what happens? Well, what happens is you get yourself a war. Could you have a real war there? I don't know. What do you think? I mean, these things, wars have been started for less. So you could see it's heating up here. It's heating up in a bit everywhere, and in the Middle East, it's heating up also where we are, and that's a problem, right? And it's a problem because it's a hot issue, and also again it impacts the U.S. relationship with Russia, which was supposed to, they were supposed to have a handle on that. Remember, this was supposed to end up very quickly, but obviously it's taking a little bit more time than expected. Now, so what happened on the ground? What's the detail? How bad is it? Well, basically what happened is that happened September 10th and 11th. There were 19 Russian drones, 19. They crossed into the Polish airspace. Some of the drones were shot down by NATO aircraft, the Polish forces, and Polish authorities say that some of the drones penetrated deep over Polish territory, beyond border regions. I mean, they're literally invading each other's airspace. Russian claims that the drones had no planned target suggests it was technical misdirection or accidental. Sorry, didn't mean to do this. So, from what experts and analysts are saying is that the pattern suggests here are some of the interpretation and implication. The number of drones crossing into Poland suggests coordination rather than a single mistake. Many interpreters it a test to see how fast and decisive NATO responded on how Polish air defense structures reacts. I don't think that's why they do that. I don't think that's the reason why. Yeah, they did it. You didn't send one drone. There was 19, right? I think they did it. It depends what they want to sell you. If they want to sell you that be careful, Russia is all bad and they're going to invade, then they're going to tell you, well, the reason they're poking around, they're ready to invade Poland. Okay. I think you have to look at it the other way as well, which is basically stay out of my business, right? European, stay out of the Ukraine-Russia situation. And you're building up your armies. You want to be in the middle. You want to offer security guarantees. That is not going to happen. It is hard to believe. It's hard to believe that Russia wants to invade all of Europe. It's never going to work. It's tough enough to get through Ukraine. No, this is just a message that's being sent that, let's confuse you a little bit. Look at what we could do. Of course, it's a very dangerous game to play, right? Because suppose you really lose control of the drone and for some reason they do some real damage somewhere. Now you're going to force the Polish to react. Now then you have, and basically, don't forget, Poland is a NATO country. Technically, Article 5 says you got to respond and do something, which they did. Well, not just shoot it down. You got to go back to where it came from and shoot the people that shot at you. They haven't done that. Right? Given Poland's role as a major logistic hub for aid to Ukraine, testing its airspace security could be meant to signal vulnerability. The actions appear to send a message, I think, that the war isn't confined to Ukraine's border, that NATO eastern flank could also see spillover effects. It's a warning, basically. Not that I'm going to invade you, but you keep poking and bothering me. This could end up hurting you more than it's hurting me. And don't forget that Russia right now, Russia is a war economy. It's a war economy. And basically, a lot of the money that they're making is going to make weapons, the same way the U.S. was during World War II, basically spending all, raising taxes, war. Now, the question that everyone is asking is how long can that go on, right? How much longer can that happen, right? How long can Russia keep doing what they're doing? Well, obviously maybe running out of time, but Ukraine is also running out of time. But at the same time, you've seen, and this is where it gets really complicated, you've seen Russia going to China, and China, believe it or not, you saw the pictures, right? It's not a news channel, don't forget to subscribe. What's happening with China is now they're financing some of the companies from the Ukraine side. They're helping each other. To which extent, we shall see. So this kind of incursion raises question about how the Russian operation will push before invoking strong NATO responses. Because technically, you just poke me in the eye. I got to do something. And if I can't do it, my NATO friends are going to do it. I said, but we're not ready to do anything. Yeah, we can't fight Russia. NATO is not ready to fight Russia today. I'm not the one saying it. The NATO Secretary General said it. So it highlights capability and cost issues, low-cost drone versus expensive interception. You guys are not ready. You're still fighting the other war. I'm fighting the new war. It shows Russia's capabilities or willingness. Russia may be showing that it's willing to accept diplomatic or political risk to probe NATO, possibly calculating that the benefits outweigh the costs. Intimidation. You remember when Biden said with Ukraine, don't? Just don't. Well, he did it, and then what happened? So since then, the consequences look like political and diplomatic reaction. Poland, Ukraine, Lithuania condemned the incursion, obviously. Poland activity, the NATO Article 4, which triggers consultation among allies. But they got to talk to Trump and the U.S. administration. So what do we do about this? Oh, listen, I'm trying to get all these people to talk, but obviously it's becoming more and more difficult. Discussions are underway about investigating low-cost means of counteracting drones. Basically, let's find some cheapest way to fight those drones rather than always relying on high-cost missiles. You're fighting the wrong war. This incursion may shift perception about Russian boldness and willingness to push boundaries. It might also force NATO to clarify what responses are possible when drone incursions occur. They always thought invasion, but it's not an invasion. It's a little bird flying over and dropping a... Right? The incursion may shift perception about Russian boldness. Such incidents carry risk of inadvertent escalation. What if a drone caused civilian harm in NATO country? That's right. So that's exactly what the Russia wants them to know. I'm willing to take a risk. I didn't mean anything by it, but you know what? That's a risk, the cost of doing business. And I'm willing to take a chance. Test you. Maybe you don't like it. Maybe something happens, and then we go to the next stage. And the next stage after that. And the next stage after that. This is not where you want to go. You want to bring everything down, not bring everything forward. But unfortunately, the Europeans are insistent on being between Russia and Ukraine to create the buffer. Fine. Nothing wrong with stopping a war. But they don't want to do it on their own. They want the U.S. And the U.S. quite right now is a bit... non-responsive. Have you seen anything or heard anything? Yeah, they're dealing with a lot of issues right now, so we haven't heard it. So we shall see what happens. But so far, it is being very quiet on the Western Front, if I might say so. So The next one. The next one is yeah, that's probably going to hit more closer to home, I think. Basically, this is a tariff situation, and this tariff situation is a bit is interesting, and I'll tell you why. I think we're starting, and I personally, I'm starting to see it as well. Coffee prices. Coffee prices are exploding. Your morning brew might be a lot more expensive now. Coffee prices are soaring thanks to a perfect storm of climate stress in Brazil, erratic weather in Vietnam, supply shortages, and new import tariffs. Remember the 50% on Brazil that is still holding? And by the way, that president got almost 27 years in prison, the one that's friend with Trump. We're talking prices at record high, shelf shock at grocery stores, and serious strain on roasters. All of this while consumer braced for sticker shock. What is driving this surge? What is going on with the coffee? What is happening with coffee? Well, basically what you have is coffee prices are going up. The coffee prices are going up all over the world, and especially because of Brazil. Now, and this Brazil situation is tied to what is going on with the tariffs, which is tied to what's going on with the Supreme Court, which is tied with the fact that the Court of Appeals has said that the tariffs are illegal. Those emergency tariffs are illegal. You can't, the 50% tariff on Brazil is because Bolsonaro, which is the previous president of Brazil, a good friend of Trump, is being indicted. In fact, now he's going to jail for 27 years. And he said, no, then this is the emergency tariff, 50%. And I said, well, what is that? How is that an emergency? In fact, Brazil complained really hard, and they went to the World Trade Organization, and that didn't help that case, right? And basically the Court of Appeals is saying the tariffs are illegal. Okay, you got to stop that. And he said, well, no, I don't disagree. So all those tariffs are now going to the Supreme Court. And at the Supreme Court, quite frankly, they are trying to figure out, well, what is going on? Are those tariffs legal or not? Are they? Are they legal? You have to understand that the reason the tariffs are tied in that fashion is because first of all, with tariffs, it's not a bunch of tariffs. Is like three tariffs. You've got the emergency tariffs, which is what everyone has been using right now. The U.S. has been using, and then you've got more of the security tariffs, and that's what they're using more and more now because they realize that that battle is lost. I don't believe that the Supreme Court is going to say, you know what, you're right, we're wrong. Security tariffs are okay. Even though most of the judges are actually being put there with Republicans, but it cannot be. It cannot be. It's not going to happen. Because the same way they told Biden last year that you're not a king, you can't just remove all of the student loans. They're going to say something about this current administration. They're going to tell them, no, you cannot do that. That is not something that you're allowed to do as a president. So what they're doing is they're shifting gear, but that's a major black swan right there. Major black swan. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel. Right? The reason this is a black swan, something that's going to impact everyone, and obviously the tariffs are impacting you because I'm sure you see the prices going up. The thing is, if the Supreme Court says that this is not legal, okay, fine. So what? By the time, which is going to be probably by the end of the year, they're gonna come up with that. You got to give the money back, and that money, which is probably going to be $300 to $400 billion by the end of the year, needs to go back to where they came from, meaning go back to Ford, GM, But that's good. It stays in the U.S. No, that's not good. That's not good because the money right now that is being paid for the tariffs is going directly into the treasury to help pay for the debt. And the debt is that $37 trillion. We owe a lot of money. So what's going to happen is you don't have that money. Therefore, don't forget the yield on the 10-year treasury yield is at close to 4%. Why? But because they say, well, your condition is improving, and if you keep doing this with the tariffs, you're probably going to collect $3-4 trillion. Way to go. What do you mean you have to give it back? Oh, so you don't have the $4 trillion, but no way to go. So now the riskiness of the debt of the U.S. goes back up. That is a major issue to my subscribers and to my members. It is a major issue because now there's concern about the ability for the U.S. to keep paying its debt. Real issues. And so the way you're going to do it is you are simply going to not pay, or you're going to have, and if you can't pay, then, and don't forget that September is also a major interesting issue, is that September, they are all in the process right now of going through the budget again for September to avoid a shutdown. So you got to be careful that if you're not able to pay for this, you're going to have a problem with your debt, and then you're going to have a problem with liquidity. And whenever you have a problem with liquidity, remember 2008, it is not good. You want the money to flow through. And the money is going to flow through as long as there is security and something is happening. So you got to be very careful. Now, because in addition to that, the side note is, how is the economy doing? Because we have looked at some of the housing, the employment numbers don't look good at all right now. Employment numbers are pretty bad. Does it mean we're going into recession? Again, you have to be careful who you're listening to, okay? Because while the employment numbers are not good, that's true. They've gone a lot down, but they haven't been good since last year. This has nothing to do with what's going on now. They revised the numbers like minus 911,000 between April 2024 and April 2025. Again, nothing to do with the tariffs. So the economy had been soaring for a while, and probably because interest rates were too high. Right? They were asking the Fed to lower rates. They say, I'm not lowering rates because you got those tariffs. I don't know what's going on with the tariffs. And the employment numbers are pretty good. So you look at the employment numbers and you realize, oh my God, they're not good. That's right. And one or two of the members at the Federal Reserve said, we got to lower those rates. Now, having said that, you got to be careful. Don't just listen to people telling you, oh, the economy, bad, recession. No. The stock market is doing great. The GDP is up 3% plus. So there's no issues going on right now to be so worried about it. There's a tremendous amount of money being spent for AI. Yes, some of the valuations are high, but when we say valuation of the market, the S&P 500, we're talking about 7 stocks, including NVIDIA. Yeah, you're paying a lot for them. But there's a bunch of other stocks, and I recommend them in my as a subscribers for $5 a month. I talk to you about, look what I'm doing, and these are the stocks that are of interest. This is what's happening in the market. Every morning I tell you what's going on in the market. Because at the end of the day, you're not here to try to make money. You're trying to avoid losing any. That's the way you make money. Spitznagle made 4,000% during COVID, and not by buying stocks, by protecting his portfolio with long-dated puts. He was looking for the fat tail. That's what you want to look for. Look for the fat tail, meaning that events that you think are not going to happen, that are very cheap, and then they happen, and then you make the money. That's how you do it. And of course, speaking of tariffs, our good friends in Mexico also are being pressured. They're being pressured by the U.S. And basically what's happening there, we're being asked to pay 50% tariffs. 50%. What does that mean? Well, basically, what the U.S. is doing right now, I guess you call it a trade war escalation. essentially Mexico is 50% tariffs on China under pressure from the U.S. Mexico has announced up to 50% tariffs on Chinese autos and dozen of other imports in a sweeping overhaul. And yes, U.S. pressures looms large behind it. Basically, they're saying, we know what's happening. You're going to take the stuff, you're going to ship it to Mexico, and you're going to bring it here. No, 50% if it comes from... this isn't just about protectionism. It's about political alignment, industrial strategy, and Mexico balancing act between domestic interests and its biggest trade allies. How will this reshape the auto sector? Right? Mexico is caught in the middle. Mexico is caught in the middle because he's trying to desperately not being too much impacted by what's happening in the U.S., but they have no choice because the U.S. administration is playing hardball here. The same way they're doing with the European. They're saying, listen, you want me to do security guarantees? Then you start 100% tariffs on China and India for buying the oil of Russia. You going to do that for me? And now Mexico announced a plan, pending legislative approval, obviously, to raise tariffs on cars from China and other Asian countries up to 50%. Existing duties were lower. This change would cover large volumes, including imports of vehicle, auto parts, electronics, and textile. Mexico relies heavily on the U.S. Heavily. 70 to 80% of what they export goes to the U.S. The public affects about $52 billion worth of imports. While the Mexican government says the good is to protect domestic industries and jobs and to address dumping, it's more the U.S. pressure on an important driver. The U.S. is concerned about China using Mexico as a backdoor and generally pushing its trade allies to tighten controls on Chinese goods. It's a balancing act by Mexico, right? Basically, the U.S. is saying, no. What we're going to do, my friend, is you're going to work with me and you're going to be my best friend because you are, right? And I want you to be with me involved and do my bidding. It's not it's not maybe not nice to do that Mexico, but they have no choice because the U.S. doesn't have as much time to do it. See, the thing you have to understand, go beyond the personality. You have to understand what is the U.S. doing all this. The U.S. is doing all this because it has to do it. So obviously, it's a balancing act for Mexico, which is protecting national industries and while maintaining trade relationship and obligation. The tariffs is being well positioned on industrial strategy. So we have lots of issues here that needs to be dealt with, right? And hopefully, let's see what happens next. I think that at the end of the day, you're seeing a geopolitical world that is moving fast and furious, and the stakes are going up. Now, obviously, questions could be said about the U.S. Was that the right strategy, to push and tug and coerce? Well, when you don't have that much time, you have to work. You have to move quickly. You may not like the way it's done, but it needs to be done. Let's see what happens next. Thanks for joining. Don't forget, subscribe to this channel and become a member.